Okay, we're live. I think.
What's up?
We've got our regular delay, which is super fun always.
A regular delay of 18 million minutes.
Welcome everybody to our live stream. We're happy that you could be here and join us. Let's dig in. I gotta get this anchor ready. You could talk, you know.
Today we're going to be talking about our solar setup, which should be super interesting for everybody. Not. It is very complicated to read, but is fairly simple to set up. But how are you guys doing out there? Let us know in the comments. It's been a while since we've done a live stream, so I don't know. We'll see if you guys show up.
It's also Monday afternoon, so
yeah,
that's our bad.
Yep.
All right, we're going to start the actual podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FnA podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Frankie.
And together we live in Lolo, our 2003 Dodge Sprinter.
Yeah, she's a beaut.
Today we're going to talk about solar systems for vans. This is something that absolutely, to this day, confuses me. I have a bit more of the lingo than I used to and some understanding, but Frankie's definitely the expert.
I wouldn't even call myself an expert, but I know enough to get us by and to get you guys by, hopefully.
Yeah, and so I heard a quote once that's basically like, you know, you might not think you're an expert, but you know a lot more than somebody who doesn't know anything, you know, who's somebody at the starting gate.
Just for the simple fact that we've done it and it works.
Yeah, and it works really well.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive into that, but first a little update from the road.
Oh, yeah. Right now we are in Seattle at my sister's house, which is probably still from the last live stream.
Yeah, we've been here for over a month.
Over a month in quarantine. Nobody's sick. Nobody's gotten sick. We've been keeping our social distance from other people. And Alex and I recently decided that we're not going to give you the news yet.
Yeah, we have some big news coming up, and we're actually going to be getting on the road again soon, which we're really excited about.
I wouldn't technically say it's getting on the road.
We're going to find a new location.
Yeah, people might get upset if we say that.
Yeah, but so we've got some big news coming up. We haven't actually firmed up any of the actual details about that yet, but we're actively working to try something different.
Yeah, something that might help us in our future. So hopefully you guys are interested in what that is as well. But let's get into solar.
Yeah. Okay, so a solar system, so let's just talk about electrical systems in total. To power your van, you don't actually need a solar system. If you watched our last van build video on YouTube, you'll have seen that Eric's van doesn't have any solar panels at all.
Correct, yeah. He actually just charges his batteries and such with a alternator charger. So basically he has a hookup that goes from his alternator and sends power to his batteries, charging his batteries, and that's how he gets all his solar.
Yeah. And
or shouldn't say solar, all his power.
Electricity.
Yeah, electricity.
Yeah. And we have the same setup in our van as well, where we have a connection from our car battery to our solar batteries in the back, and when our alternator, aka the car, is running and we're driving, we can charge the back batteries.
Yeah.
This for us is our backup system. It was super necessary when we were on the East Coast during the winter. Just
due to the fact that we weren't getting any solar at all, and that was the only way we were actually getting energy at first. It really hurt us to not have the battery-to-battery charging setup with the alternator. Yeah,
so once we included the battery-to-battery setup in our full setup, so with our solar plus the battery-to-battery, we haven't had any electrical or power shortcomings since then.
Yeah, so one very important thing to just start off with, if we're going to talk about the battery-to-battery connection first, since that's where we're at, if you guys are going to set something like this up, you have to match your back battery with your front battery. If you have a battery. Some people go as far as even getting the same type of battery, so the same brand. But as long as it's 100 amp hours and the other one is 100 amp hours, and you have if one has a crankcase or they both have a crankcase, or cold crank, a cold crank amperage, you have to match that cold crank amperage as well, which is something that at first I had no idea about, and I thought I could just put almost any battery to battery and it should be fine, but I was actually shorting out our main battery in the front of the truck because we had a 65 amp in the front of the truck and a 100 amp battery in the back.
Yeah, it took us a while to figure that out, and a lot of that didn't work out moments.
Yeah, it was luckily, like, I would just touch it and I would like see the spark and I would pull it off. If I would have actually left it on there and held it on there, I could have shorted out our whole entire electrical system as well as possibly burnt the truck down.
Yeah, that would have been very bad. So I have a question though, because a car battery, okay, I'll get back to my question in a minute. Let's talk about different types of batteries that you can purchase for the back of your vehicle. The one that we have is an AMG deep cycle battery.
Yep.
These are pretty big, they're pretty heavy, they're pretty bulky.
Super bulky. They're less expensive though.
Yeah, so we started out with 6, and then one of those batteries we moved to the front of the vehicle to be the car battery so it would match the back system.
So let me just interject here, because the reason why we were able to do that, 3 of the 6 batteries that we had were actually starting batteries as well as a battery that could hold a charge.
Right.
Like for a bus, for instance. Then we also have 3 other batteries that are just deep cycle cell batteries.
And those will not start your car.
Yeah, they don't have a starting property with them. So with that being said, we were able to utilize one of the 3 that you could start a vehicle with and put that in the front of our vehicle to have the same type and the same size battery in the front as well as we would have in the back, and the same brand. That way we could easily charge our back battery system.
Mm-hmm. So the next upgrade in batteries would be a lithium ion battery, which is kind of the gold standard for van builds.
It is extremely expensive, lightweight, and user friendly. So like you could use this battery and drain it all the way to 100%. I would still recommend only going to like 80%, even though they say you could go to 0. You don't want to damage the battery, so maybe drawing all the energy out of it might not be a good idea, but they say it works like that. So yeah, lithium ion works the longest, stores the most, and is the lightest all at the same time, and is more efficient at doing it.
Right. So just a cost comparison, one lithium ion battery.
It's like $1,200 probably, somewhere around there on average.
And what would that be equivalent to for the number of AMG batteries? Because each AMG battery is about $150.
I think we bought ours for $100 a piece.
Yeah.
So on Amazon we bought ours for $100 a piece. Maybe we'll throw a link in the description of this video of what we got. But I would say basically 10 to 12 AMG batteries are the same price point of one lithium ion battery, but the amount of weight that that would take would be, they're about 60 to 80 pounds per battery. So
and a lithium ion battery,
depending on the size, is like 15 pounds maybe. Yeah. So putting that weight in your car is something that you have to think about too as well, or putting that weight in your van is something you might have to think about. And because you want to keep everything balanced. But imagine having 10 big, bulky, heavy batteries in the back of your truck.
Well, I'm wondering about like electricity volume rather than like actual space volume. Like how many batteries, AMG 100 amp hour batteries?
So one lithium ion 100 amp hour battery is 100 amp hours specifically.
And that would be $1,200.
One 100 amp hour battery that is lead acid or gel sealed lead acid would only be 50 amps technically speaking, because you can only use half of it.
Right, and
so you need 2 of those in order to match up with one lithium ion battery.
So still you're talking about 200 versus 1,200 for the same amount of power storage.
Yes. Ultimately, in a van though, you have a small space. You have a a small space, so you can only fit so many, and your usage of energy is higher than what you would think. So you would go through that 100 amp hours fairly quick.
So you would probably need more than one battery.
Yeah, you definitely will need at least two, I would say, depending on like how much you're traveling and driving and how much solar you have on the roof and how, you know.
So let's go back to the beginning and think about how much solar that you actually need. So when we were first thinking about our van build and how many panels did we need to buy, how many batteries did we need to buy, we made a list of everything that we were going to have in the van that was electrical.
One thing we did too is we researched what other people use and how much consumption they have and what seemed to be around about the like middle ground area. So we want to have a bigger solar system in the sense of the energy we could bring in when it is sunny outside. So we wound up going with 400 watt solar panels, where some people go with 250 watt solar panel, which would be more than enough to charge 1 or 2 batteries. You're not going to get enough solar in a day unless you're in like a place that is like full sun all day long for like 12 hours. You might have the opportunity to charge a battery bank like ours in a single day, but we have 5 AMG batteries. That's 250 amp hours that we could use and 500 amp hours that we would charge. So to charge that, it takes quite some time. What those numbers are, I don't know exactly off the top of my head.
Right. And we're not really powering anything crazy inside the van, but you have to think about things that aren't part of your daily life. So obviously charging your cell phone, charging your computer, running, say you had like an induction cooktop or something like that. But
Toaster
the things
oven.
that you need to really think about are kind of the back end stuff. So like your water pump, a water heater, if you have an electric water filter.
An electric heater.
We have a heat trace so that our plumbing lines don't freeze. And all these back end stuff that you're not using every day, stuff that kind of like runs in the background and draws energy when you're not thinking about it.
It's like your computer. If you have your computer running with several different things in the background, it's going to drain the power and everything a lot faster or make your usability to like do other things slower.
Right.
So it's the same concept with electric, except for we're using more behind the scenes than what we realize.
Right. So you really need to make a list of all of these components. And in our last build, we talked about plumbing systems. Like you could have a really complicated electricity heavy system, or you can have a zero electricity plumbing system.
Yep.
So knowing your build and what you're putting into it is really going to determine how big your solar system needs to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have our list of things that we're going to power. If you actually look at something that you own that requires electricity, I never knew this before, but on the back of it, it actually tells you the output voltage and the input voltage. So it tells you what it needs to run.
So everybody on the podcast, right now Alex is looking at the back of a Samsung charger, just the one that you plug into the wall. On the back of that, it basically says that its output is 9 volts and at 1.67 amps or 5 volts at 2 amps. But this is obviously you plug it into a 120 volt wall outlet. And when you do that, your amperage change. So when your voltage goes up, your amperage goes down. And when your voltage goes down, your amperage goes up. So it's a bunch of information that is probably hard to understand right now, but you're using more amperage, more work when you are using a lower voltage.
Right. So in our van, we have 2 voltage systems.
Yes.
We have a 120 voltage system, which
is
would
like
be
your regular wall outlet.
Yeah, so that's what you're used to at home. You plug into a 120 volt outlet.
And then we also have a 12 volt system in our van as well, and that system is like what you would plug a USB into. That's a 12 volt system, or Most of the equipment that you use is actually 12 volts, but most of the adapters that they come with to charge, like for instance your computer, technically it would be 12 volt, but you're plugging it into a 120, so then you need a
Inverter?
Transformer, a built-in transformer in order for it to make the change. In the van, we have an inverter. The inverter takes the 12 volt and brings it up to 120 volts.
And so you need that because the solar that comes in
The solar
is coming in.
it comes in as watts, and then there's actually an MPPT controller that it goes into, and then that controller then disperses it. It takes it, changes it to a amperage, or a watt. An amperage, and then stores that amperage inside those batteries. So your batteries are storing it while the MPPT controller is converting it to a different type, and the solar panels are bringing in that energy from the sun. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just barely.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's because I have a little bit of an understanding. Like, obviously, as we were building the system, we were talking through it, and I live with the components every day, so I see what they are.
Yeah, so your battery then stores it and distributes it. So depending on however you have it set up, you'll have some breakers and stuff in between to make sure that you don't over amp anything and burn up wires or anything like that, which we've also had an opportunity to deal with as well along our travels.
Yeah, we had one of our fuse boxes was undersized, it was oversized.
It was oversized.
But the wires were undersized, so the wires melted, which caused the fuse to melt but not trip. So the electrical system is a really important, really dangerous part of your build because you could have electrical fires, and that's why in houses...
One thing I do want to say, sorry to interrupt you, one thing I do want to say is if you really don't understand it at all, don't do it. Have somebody else come in and do it that understands it. I'm not trying to shy you guys away from not doing it, but I don't want you guys to die and be like, oh, or like get really hurt and be like, oh, FnA Vanlife told me to do it. You know what I mean? So we're not telling you to do it. We want you to feel comfortable, understand it first before you even come close to, really getting into it.
Right. And so there are guides that you can buy online from other van lifers. We'll have links to all of the items that we have in our system. And it can be fairly easy, but it also requires enough skill to know how to put it together safely.
Correct.
And you have to know, like, you can't touch the positive side of a battery. You can only touch the negative side. Like, with wires, like twisting them together, how to do that properly so that they don't end up splitting or they don't end up sparking, or it's a little bit complicated.
Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure that your polarity is always correct. Like if you're running something like a negative, you make sure you're running it to a negative and positive to the positive. That way you don't have any shorts or anything. It also depends on how you're setting up your system, because there's several different ways to set up batteries. There's several different ways to set up the solar panels. The solar panels come as 12 volt, 100 watt solar panels, so you could put them in you could put them in series or parallel. There's two different ways to put them. Same with your batteries, you can put them in series or parallel. We have everything in parallel because we want to keep everything as 12 volt. If you start to put your batteries in a series situation, you're going to start increasing your voltage and keeping the same amperage. So you might wind up having 3 batteries connected, say they're both 12 volt, you connect them in series, you're going to go from 12 volt to 24 volt to 48 volts. 12, I think it's 12, 24, 36, no, 48, I don't know, whatever. However that works, you're going to up your voltage, and then you're going to go to charge something that's 12 volts, and you're going to blow it up. I mean... So you have to be very mindful of what you're trying to do.
So we're also live streaming this podcast on YouTube, and we have a question from Ann Calder. She wants to know if we bought all separate components for our build.
Yeah, we actually did. We bought everything through Amazon. I have some experience in air conditioning. I did that for 8 years, and I worked in the union in New York City. So I had got a lot of experience with electrical generally. So I have a good understanding of what we needed, and that's the reason why we wanted to buy in everything separately. It was a lot cheaper for us that way.
And it does sound like they have like DIY easy kits for installation.
Renogy has like kits like that where you could buy the solar panels, the controller, and I think the batteries too as well, with the wires and everything already, bundled together. Right. Which would be super helpful for if you're not experienced with this type of stuff.
Right. And also you could have a really simple setup versus a really complicated setup. The more outlets you have, the more pot lights you have, the more complicated that it gets.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing about a comment we got on YouTube, and it's Sister Shirley said, "Thank God the haircut turned out." I appreciate that. It means it looks good. Thank you.
Yeah, Sister Sherry has some good YouTube videos as well. You guys should check those out. Everybody's digging Frank's new haircut. If you missed the haircut video, you should probably go watch it.
Yeah, it's really funny. Believe me, it didn't start off like this. There was another haircut before this one.
Yeah. Okay, so like we said, for cloudy days, that's the only limitation of a solar system, is that you're not going to be taking in as much solar as you need to do everything.
So we covered the alternator charger. There's also another way to charge, and that would be shore outlet.
Shore power.
So shore power. So you could connect a shore setup, hookup, to where that also charges your battery bank, which is actually the fastest way to charge your battery bank.
And what that means, if you're not familiar with shore power, you would have basically an extension cord that plugs into your van, and then it plugs into like a house outlet.
Well, no, so basically what would happen is it would be a plug that is located in your van or outside your van that you would connect to from a house, like Alex said. But then there's a converter in between that and the battery bank that allows it to charge, dropping the voltage down and just bringing in amperage for those batteries, from what I'm aware of.
Yeah, so we do not have that system set up in our van. We bought the component for it, but then we never actually ended up installing it.
Yeah.
We probably ended up, because we did the DIY version of this, we bought a lot of things that we didn't end up using, or we only used one and we bought 5, or whatever. We ended up with like a lot of odds and ends.
We still have like a couple of extra breakers and stuff like that. It's always good to have those as long as they're the correct size.
Yeah.
But we did buy some extras because I was unsure of what I was buying at the time, and then realized it was the wrong component.
Right. And in terms of like safety on the road, like keeping things as you go, you should definitely have fuses, because you are likely to blow a fuse. You should definitely have, what else?
So you said you should definitely have a fuse, right? So there's going to be a couple different fuses that you're going to have in there. You're going to have fuses coming from your solar system. You're going to have a fuse coming off of your battery bank going to your inverter, and you're also going to have a fuse block for your 12-volt system for like your water pumps and things like that.
Right. So I'm saying that if, in terms of on the road, you need to make sure that you have extra fuses.
Yeah, extra fuses. So you want to make sure you have extra fuses. You want to make sure you have extra wiring, that just in case like it gets a nick in it or something, because you want them to stay fully sealed all the time, because when you have electrical going through something, heat is going through that, and what that insulation is doing is keeping that heat inside and allowing it not to escape, and that way it protects everything outside of it, as well as it will hurt the performance of your actual system if you have ripped up lines or broken lines or any, like, even stripping lines. You're supposed to make sure that you strip them with the right size, that way you have all the wires that you need to create that transfer.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Do you have anything else?
So I would say like electrical tools. Make sure that they're insulated tools that you're using. Especially if you're gonna work live, I would suggest never work live if you can.
And what that means is that just like in a house where you would turn your breaker off before you go fiddle with something,
Yep.
or you turn the light switch off before you change your light bulb, you want to turn your system off before you fiddle with anything.
So on the 12-volt side, those breakers will act as a on-off switch, as well as you could install an on-off switch as well. So,
Right.
I would recommend having both, because having two ways of security is better than just one.
Totally. All right.
But to just give you guys an understanding, I am not any way, shape, or form an expert on solar systems or 12-volt stuff. But I've talked to electricians, and they said the same thing to me. Like, I don't really understand that because I've never worked in it before. So do your research, read as much as you can about it, get yourself really comfortable with it before you actually set yourself up to get in there and do it, because it is something that could be a life changer.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah, but also know with all things van build related, like if you're committed and you do the research, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
No.
It is possible to do. Yeah, Frankie has some good background and some good understanding of mechanical things. I'm really glad that he figured it out for us, and I didn't have to do that figuring out.
Another thing what we'll do is we'll link the solar system, like the actual solar panels that we bought from Amazon as well, in the description below, because they worked really, really well, and they were super, super cheap.
Yeah.
They're like $100 a piece, and we used a company called Rich Solar, and they've worked out great for us. We have no issues collecting energy from them. Even on days where it's cloudy, we're still pulling in something, which is great. But you could go with the better companies in the sense of like more known, and that would be like a company like Renergy.
Right. Yeah, we opted for cost efficiency over name brand for pretty much everything in our build. And we are about to put up a breakdown of expenses, and we have another video of like how much everything costs to build our van, so we can link to that stuff as well.
Yep.
But we want to thank you guys for listening to the podcast.
Yeah,
we'll close the podcast up, and then we'll continue the conversation on our live stream. What are you grateful for this week, Frankie?
Ooh, I'm grateful for the fact that we're healthy and happy and safe.
Yeah.
Just in a safe place. Even just being in America, we're very fortunate and lucky to be in a place that is so safe. There's no war in our area, anything. We're not being forced to go to places where we shouldn't be going right now with the situation that's going on with the world. Other people aren't so fortunate. So just be thankful that we're here and we're, safe and healthy.
Yeah. I am grateful that we've got some exciting things coming up. And I'm super grateful that we've been able to stay here with your family for the time that we have. But I'm also looking forward to a new adventure and
Me too. I can't
trying
wait.
something different.
I can't wait to tell you guys.
Yeah, so you'll have to stay tuned for the big announcement. Be sure to check out the YouTube channel because we will be linking to that soon. And that's all.
From the podcast, we'll see you guys next time.
Peace. All right, guys, we got to give a big shout out to Ann Calder. Thank you so much for commenting on Frankie's hair and my hair.
Yeah,
We're both feeling a lot fresher than we did before.
And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us on Instagram on FnA Vanlife. If you have any questions about the solar setup, if you need any help with anything, I'm more than happy to help.
Troubleshoot or whatever.
Troubleshoot, help you get set up, whatever it is. Just let me know what you're looking for, and we can figure it out together.
Yeah, and then big shout out to Noah Tarzan. He's saying that Frankie looks so different. He definitely does. But it's funny because I just pulled up a picture a couple minutes ago of you with your long hair. And I was like, oh, God, you look so much better now. And, like, it's not like I thought he looked bad before. It's just, you know.
It's funny. It's just every time Alex sees my hair change, there's always, like, a moment of her, like, what? And then she's like, okay, I like it, you know?
Yeah, so it's a good change. And then, of course, we got to give a shout out to Sister Sherry Travels. She has a really nice travel and coffee YouTube channel. I like watching her vlogs. So thank you, everybody, for stopping by. We really appreciate it. We hope that you're all happy and healthy.
And safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys aren't dealing with the lockdown situation too bad and that you're getting through every day.
Yep. All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. We will see you in the next one.
Peace out.
Bye.